Hello, welcome to another special edition of Five Strikes Tonight. The United States men's national team continues their quest for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. My name is Sydney Hunt. Glad you can join me this time around. Well, the United States currently sitting on 5 points in the CONCACAF standings. Of course, the top 3 teams in the region go directly to the World Cup. The 4th team has to play an interconfederational playoff against a team to be determined. And of course, the United States don't want to be that 4th team to have to fight and claw for its way to get into the World Cup final. The road to Qatar begins again on Thursday at Q2 Stadium, the all-new Q2 Stadium in Austin, Texas, against Jamaica, before the scene shifts to Panama City on Sunday against the Panamanians. Then on next Wednesday, United States and Costa Rica, the all-new Lure.com field in Columbus, Ohio. I'm really excited because I have 2 guests who are really respected in the world of American soccer. You know them. They really require no introduction. Jason Davis, you know him for the Best Soccer Show, as well as the United States of Soccer on Sirius XM-FC. And Tom Bogert, you know his work from MLSsoccer.com. Really excited to have Jason and Tom with me today, so let's get started. All right, joining me now are 2 faces and names you all may recognize. Jason Davis, you know him as a host of the Best Soccer Show, as well as the host of United States of Soccer on Sirius XMFC. And then Tom Bogert, you know him from MLSsoccer.com. Gentlemen, I was going to say good evening. We're taping this on Monday night, but welcome in. Let's talk about the window of the first window. The United States right now sitting on 5 points on the win against Honduras, and then the 2 draws. I want to get you guys to give me 3 words that describe the first window. And Jason, let's start with you. I know you have some.
Oh man, 3 words that describe the first window. Underwhelming. It's a good word. Redemption is a good word. Inconsistent is also another word. I think those are 3 good words. I think they all apply.
There you go. Tom, what about you?
I had the benefit of getting to think while Jason spoke. I'm kind of a similar thread there, but CONCACAF, I'm adding that. I thought that was perfect. I was trying to find a way to fit the Honduras traffic cones for ball stands, so I'm just going to cover all of CONCACAF. Very nervy. I was going with very nervy. And yeah, I think inconsistent. I'm going to say what yours, Jason. I think.
You can't do that.
It was
can't
consistent
repeat.
for 5 halves of disappointment and insanity. You can't repeat. I think I went second.
Yeah.
It's not a game. I'm just like,
Peppy.
if this was Scrabble, I would definitely challenge CONCACAF, just so you know what's up.
Did you say Peppy, Tom?
Yeah, as in Ricardo.
There you go.
We're going to lose it.
Okay.
No, I was going to kind of go along the same lines as you guys. I was going to say major opportunities missed because Tom, you mentioned
to do a sentence.
You break your own rule?
incomplete sentences.
You just broke your own rule, man.
Major opportunities missed. Those are my 3 words.
Wait, hold on. You're using your 3 words to make a sentence. I did not know that was on the table. Tom? Professional writer, Tom Bogert?
But Tom, you mentioned Pepe, and of course, Pepe had the go-ahead goal against Honduras. If you take that away, I mean, granted, the United States tacked on a couple more. But if you take that away, I mean, you're talking about a 3-point window. I mean,
I would have assumed. I mean, obviously, like you said, it was a go-ahead goal, but like I think the contrast of the mood and the feeling at halftime against Honduras, down 1-0, was red alert, pure, uncut panic. Like I'm of the camp of I try to be nuanced. I try to, take a step back. Like the sky isn't falling or things aren't perfect, no matter which way you go. But if they lost to Honduras and they didn't show any signs in the first half of being able to score 1, let alone 2 goals against kind of a depleted Honduras team, at least without Albert Elise and a couple other guys, that would have been cause for like full blown panic. And like, I don't know, the discourse was already pretty insufferable on what I saw on social media. I was mostly off social media that game, thankfully. But I had a number of group chats that I wanted to throw my phone through the wall. So I just cannot possibly imagine what it would have been like for 4 or 5 weeks up until these games. It just
that's the thing that I take away most, is that they made my life more difficult by making the situation so fraught and so tough to talk about. And when it's your job to talk about it, and it's like pulling your hair out, it's a lot. I think, there's absolutely that redemption narrative from the 5 halves that Tom mentioned, and then that last half. The question is whether that last half is indicative, and I know we're going to get to the games coming, but whether that last half is indicative of who they actually are, or if that was a mirage. And what we saw was, a depleted Honduras team, as Tom mentioned, a gassed Honduras team. Mm-hmm. Berhalter, and this is where he does get credit, changed the game with the substitutes at halftime.
Sure.
And that's where you can maybe feel more confident. But we kind of start over again, don't we? We kind of do.
Yeah, and what's the rule, right? Win at home, draw on the road. I think one of the most surprising things is the draw against Canada. I mean, United States, I don't think, really gave a really good account of themselves on home soil against a Canadian team that they really should be. I mean, granted, that's taking nothing away from Canada because they're a rising force within CONCACAF. Yeah, it's something, Jason.
Well, I think it's interesting. I would love to hear what Tom thinks about this, because we've heard already since the new roster has come out and Berhalter's done a couple of appearances and talked about it. He keeps saying the word verticality. He keeps saying verticality. And this grew. And look, you don't have Christian Pulisic. He's eliminated through injury. You don't have Gio Reyna. He's eliminated through injury. Maybe it's a different approach if those players are healthy. But he keeps saying verticality. And to me, that goes right back to that Canada game. And it goes right back to the way the United States was unable to play between the lines. I mean, you've got Kellen Costa wandering into no man's land, not able to receive. I mean, and even if somebody in midfield wants to try to pick out Kellen Costa, or even if there's a sense that Kellen Costa is going to drag defenders, there's nobody to fill the space in underneath him. There's nobody attacking these areas, at least against Canada. That seemed to be a major malfunction of the attacking setup. So to me, that Canada game, since you're talking about it, leads us directly into what Berhalter wants to do in this window at home against teams that are going to cede possession. I don't think you had 2 home games and obviously the Panama game. I don't think any of these teams are going to come out and try to outpossess the United States. Yeah. So if you do have the ball, how are you going to be dangerous? That's where the verticality thing comes in.
Yeah, and to your point about that Canada game, the cliche win at home and draw on the road, that was what was going to really make the window really bad. At the beginning or at halftime of Honduras, like again, thankfully for them that they figured it out at halftime, but it was not just drawing that game. And as you point to, Alphonso Davies, Kyle Larin, Jonathan David, like these are legitimate stars, and like Canada are a really strong team. Like I think that, I don't know, maybe it's just MLS bias of me knowing and seeing all these guys all the time, even the ones who aren't obviously in MLS. I think that they should be a favorite to finish at least in the playoff spot for this group. So it's not an easy game, but it was the way the performance went. Like Jason was saying, it was so insipid. It was slow. It was, nothing was happening between the lines. And as Jason pointed out, Berhalter has been harking on verticality. There was nothing. It was just slow. It was, everything took an extra touch or an extra second, and the possession wasn't good. It was just really disheartening. And again, it's one thing to just draw that game, and it's particularly in World Cup qualifying, it's a results-driven narrative. But if it was something different, if the game was kind of like really burst into life, if the United States like really showed signs that it was more the same against what they did against El Salvador, which was just, again, slow, insipid, seemed like they lacked ideas, everything was just a step off. So, that second half against Honduras, we'll see if it was a mirage. I think that's something more like what this team is. Right. But again, maybe I'm just being optimistic.
Yeah, we'll definitely see if that carries over to this window. So let's talk about this roster. Several names missing from last month's window. Pulisic, of course. Reyna, of course, we mentioned. Tim Ream, who was an addition, but he had to depart. John Brooks, who on Monday, right before we recorded this, had back issues. He had to be withdrawn. Walker Zimmerman got added a few days before we're recording this. So I want to ask you guys, out of the names that we see here on this roster, and Tom, I'll start with you. Who do you think has the most to prove in this particular window?
Most to prove, I don't know if I would call this most to prove or biggest opportunity. I would say I'm thinking of Chris Richards, particularly John Brooks being gone. I didn't know if he was going to start this Jamaica game. I didn't know if Berhalter was going to throw him in, but kind of at this point, I'd be, I guess I could see him putting Walker Zimmerman, but clearly wasn't called into the original roster, so Richards is theoretically ahead of him on the depth chart. So if Richards can form a partnership with Miles Robinson and move forward like this, I think that's, again, I wouldn't call it the most approved given his age and talent level and trying to lower expectations, but he has, I think, the biggest opportunity.
Yeah. Jason?
Well, I do like that. I do like Chris Richards, but if I'm not able to copy Tom on his on his wise pick, man, I don't want to default to a player who's new to the group in the qualifying campaign, but it's kind of hard not to. And so much has been loaded upon the shoulders of Yunus Musa. And that's, we talk about the verticality, we talk about the ability to carry the ball through midfield and not having that ability with the previous group in September. And Yunus comes in and you can see, I mean, we've seen it a little bit in the friendlies he's played for the United States, but he is still this weird, unproven commodity in a meaningful match for the United States. And I think so many people have him already penciled into the starting lineup. And I don't think that's a wrong attitude to have about him because he is talented, but it does seem like we're putting a lot on an 18-year-old player who isn't really even a regular at Valencia right now. So he's one that sticks out to me. And when we ask the question of who has the most to prove, Yunus is a good player, and I don't think he has to necessarily prove anything in terms of his potential, but he kind of has to prove that he's ready, and that happens now.
Yeah, and with Yunus, he offered something that was clearly lacking in the dynamism in the midfield. Berhalter tried to put Brendan Aronson in the midfield and against El Salvador, and I liked the idea of it. I liked the thought of it as somebody who could be super disruptive defensively, somebody who could maybe carry the ball forward, but it didn't work out for whatever reason against El Salvador. And Yunus Musa, that's one of his big skills. But I guess in having a few seconds to think about it and answering a little bit better as far as somebody with something to prove, I think I'd go with Serginho Dest. He's a Barcelona player. He's this big name. He's theoretically supposed to be one of the United States' top 5 players. Right. And it just hasn't been like that. He's somebody who has been super unconvincing in CONCACAF. He's been good in say, friendlies. He was fine in the Nations League. I'm just expecting a lot more from him than what he's shown for the national team so far.
No, I was kind of looking at Serginho right before you were talking about him, Tom. So that wasn't my original choice, but mine was Weston McKennie, especially after what happened last month. Berhalter made it clear. I mean, look, he said while it's a young group, there are consequences to your actions, and hopefully for Weston, I mean, he's still a young guy, but hopefully for him, this is kind of a wake-up call. Of course, there's so much speculation about what he did, what he didn't do, last month that got him in trouble. We could go on and on about it, but the fact is, he messed up. He knows he messed up, hopefully, and he can use this moving forward as a learning experience off the field. Now, on the field, again, considering that he didn't play last month, was suspended, he has something to prove because he can say, hey, this is what you guys were missing, without me on the field. And if he comes in and he just plays at a pedestrian pace, I mean, that doesn't really look good on him, especially with what happened last time. So I'll say McKennie is mine.
It's a good shout because you kind of easily forget just because you're focused on the result more than the individual. You think about the players who did play, not the players who didn't. But not having him against Canada for all the things we just talked about. I mean, does Weston McKennie make that a different game? Is his ability out of midfield to make the runs into the box, to pop up in places that make him dangerous? Is that something the United States could have really used against Canada in that game and didn't have it? And it doesn't mean they win if he's on the field, but it's certainly a more dynamic element to that pair of center midfielders that Berhalter likes to play.
Yeah. So let's dig into these games. Let's start with Thursday against Jamaica, and Jamaica right now really at the bottom of the table. Of course, when you look at Jamaica, one of the big names that comes to mind is Andre Blake. But this is a group that, they've allowed 6 goals, in the first 3 matches. And this is a group that is going to look to really turn the tables. So they lost to Mexico, which is kind of a given. Got blown out at home against Panama and then drew Costa Rica. So maybe a little desperation on the part of the Reggae Boys in this window, do you guys think?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know what the status is of Mikel Antonio. I believe he was called into the squad, but didn't he tweet something at the weekend again with West Ham? I don't know if you guys have any updated information on whether he's definitely available or not.
I haven't seen anything. I was obviously, taking a look at the roster and everything, but I had not.
Right.
I had not seen anything on an injury for Antonio. That would be a blow for them.
Yeah, right. So then I'll assume for all intents and purposes, and I hope I'm not wrong, that he is going to be here. That's somebody who I was worried about with Brooks when I was, talking to people about starting lineups and expectations and all that. I was like, I'm not really sure that I want Mikel Antonio going against John Brooks, even though that might be unfair to put Chris Richards in his World Cup qualifying debut against a player in that form. But if Mikel Antonio is available, they're a different team. He wasn't in the first or not much, and he's somebody who's on fire for West Ham. And this team is always going to have that. I guess they have a lot of players who can kind of break the game. Andre Blake, obviously in goal, he's somebody who can break the game. Mikel Antonio, we haven't seen. Andre Gray is another. Was a Premier League player. I believe he's with QPR now, but they have some talent, and it's Jamaica at home absolutely should be a win, and really has to be a win for a team looking to qualify for the World Cup. But they're not going to be rolled over. And again, if they have something closer to full strength lineup, it's not going to be necessarily an easy one, particularly without Pulisic and Reina and Brooks.
Yep.
Yeah, I think. Look, I'll admit that I didn't watch back Jamaica's 3 matches from the first round of qualifiers. It's kind of hard to know what to make of that. They were doing really well against Mexico. I think it was 0-0 at halftime. They scored. So Vega scores for Mexico. They score an equalizer in the 65th, and then Henry Martin scores in the 89th for Mexico to give them the win. But they were in that game. It looked like a dogfight for Mexico, and then they roll over at home against Panama.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that. And Antonio played in that game. I don't remember how long he played. Right. But Antonio played in that game. They were messing around with – it looked like they were messing around with the lineup a little bit. I don't know what to make of their midfield. And you look at the roster that they've called up here – they've called in several new forwards. I think this is because of the English rules changing a little bit on red list countries. I think that obviously the United States isn't a red list country. They don't have to worry about that. But if you look at if you look at everybody's schedule, this is something they have to keep an eye on. But now with the rules changing, okay, wait, they're home against Canada and Jamaica. I'm not sure if Jamaica was red list. Doesn't matter now. And they're on the road against Honduras.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
Actually, a little bit of an echo, but
somebody's jumping in. Tom has got some insight he's going to give us.
I don't know, Tom. Did you have anything to add to that, or?
No, I've went. I too. I confess that I did not watch back their
I don't want to get into generalities about Jamaica, right? Like I don't want to just spit out. Well, they're going to be athletic. They're going to try to hit you on the counter. They're going to be, whatever. I think Jamaica can play with the ball a little bit, but again, the United States with this group should have the majority possession, and then the pressure is on Berhalter to figure out how to make the attack work because Jamaica is going to try to defend first on the road in CONCACAF. That makes sense, and it's going to be a hostile environment, so there will be a heavy home field advantage for the United States. So really, even if you want to pick apart individual performances or talk about formations for Jamaica, the bottom line is they're going to put 8 or 9 guys behind the ball most of the time, and they're going to force the United States to figure out how to beat them.
It's actually probably the stats from that Panama loss to that Jamaica lost to Panama. Panama has 6 shots on goal, obviously 3 get past Andre Blake. Had 61% possession. Jamaica just 3 shots on target. So really Panama, basically dominating that match. But I definitely agree with you guys. It has to be a win for the United States, especially in Austin at the new stadium where, the Austin fans have really rallied around Austin FC. Obviously the results haven't really been up to expectations for Austin FC, but that's really proved to be a really good soccer market with Austin's first year in MLS. I haven't personally been to Quito. I don't know if you guys have been to Quito as of yet, but I hear it's a really nice ground. Hopefully American fans can turn out and really support the United States against Jamaica. After that Sunday, they head to Panama City against Panama, and again, it's just so tough to win on the road in CONCACAF. Obviously that win against Honduras was massive, of course, for the United States to get within really shouting distance of the top three. So I want to get you guys' impressions on right now. How do you think? What's your confidence level in that Panama match? Jason, I'll start with you.
Oh man, what's my scale here, Sydney? Because I need to figure out how to dial it in. I mean, if I'm saying, am I confident, or am I completely? Do I lack complete confidence that they can win the game? I'd say I'm relatively confident that they can stay in the match for most of it, and have really a chance
bold,
to win.
Really bold.
Yeah.
Well, look, my number on this window, because it's 2 home games sandwiching the away game in Panama, is 7 points or bust. You have to get 7 points. Yeah. It's not what you want. You want 9. And even, this team has got to kind of address the fact that they maybe went into the first window with some naivete. And Tyler Adams talked about it today in his press availability. He said, look, we talked about 9 points. How about we focus on each game as it comes? If you get past the Jamaica game with a win, I'm going to change this attitude. I'm going to say I'm more confident. Of course, if they score a couple of goals and they look dangerous, of course I'm going to go into that game thinking they can beat Panama on the road. And I really don't think there should be excuses for beating Panama on the road. If you can beat Honduras, and you can beat Honduras the way that you did, I know Panama was tough, and I know they've scored some goals, and they beat Jamaica 3-0, but man, it's not meant as disrespect. It's meant as a recognition that this group, the United States has, is better than Panama, period.
Yeah.
Tom? Yeah, I mean, with confidence level, Jason's so right. It's fluid, and as silly as it is that these things change game to game, and opinions can change, such as the fun nature of sports talk radio across everything. So if they look really fluid, look really strong against Jamaica, and that kind of convincing win and convincing performance, you think, like going into Panama, vibe to high, and again, it's never easy to go on the road in CONCACAF no matter where you go, but again, as the state of the pool, the state of the team, you'd expect or want the team to expect to go into Panama and not be playing for a draw or something like that. But on the other hand, if they look even more indecisive, if they look slower somehow, if they look more insipid without Pulisic and Reina, right, and let's say Ricardo Pepi looks like an 18-year-old striker, which I think that we can all keep on kind of glossing over, and Brendan Aronson is somebody I'm huge on, obviously, but he's still 20-year-old midfielder who's most of his league games are against most of his games are domestically in Austria, which isn't the strongest league in the world. I mean, he's been fantastic in the Champions League and with the national team, but again, you have to try to remind yourself not to bank on, okay, we're going to get an 8 out of 10 from this kid every single game no matter what.
Sure.
But what happens if a few of those things happen and Miles Robinson doesn't get free on a set piece, and then all of a sudden, even if you take 3 points, but it's a lot less than you thought it was going to be, and the performance wasn't there, then oh man, like how are they going to go on the road and kind of put up a performance against Panama? So again, these things are super fluid. It feels like a non-answer. It feels like a cop-out. But right now, I'd assume for a positive result and a positive performance against Jamaica, and thus feeling good going to Panama.
And looking at the Panama roster, a lot of names that are familiar to MLS fans. Harold Cummings, of course, played in MLS. Michael Murillo played for Red Bulls. Godoy currently plays for Nashville. Several names that are familiar to MLS fans.
These are solid players that in Panama have done a lot, but those are the first 3 names that you're going with. When the United States, without Pulisic and Reina, are still playing at Serginho Dest or Miles Robinson, Matt Turner, Brendan Aronson, insert all these guys, Wes McKinney, like these again, as Jason said, is not meant as a disrespect, but this is a game that it doesn't matter where it's being played. You should, as an American player, staff, fan, you should assume that your team is good enough to win the game.
Yeah, and we talked about the naivete portion of it that I think Adams brought up. Jason, you were talking about that really doomed the United States, and I think when you take a look at this window as a whole, and we'll talk about Costa Rica, of course. When you when you take this window as a whole, I think they'll come out more focused, more energized, and taking a look back and say, look, September wasn't good enough for our standards if we want to make the World Cup, not just sneak in and have to play in that playoff for the fourth team. They feel that they'll come out feeling that, hey, we deserve to be in the top three. We deserve to be in that conversation. So I think they'll come out more focused. And Panama, I think the result in Panama will be really key to that. I don't think I'll be too upset if it's a draw, but I think the United States at this point should be considered good enough to beat Panama. After Panama, of course, comes Costa Rica, which kind of is a World Cup mainstay for the most part. The big name, of course, pops up. Keylor Navas, who is 34. This might be his last go-around, really. And, of course, we saw Donnarumma started in the Champions League for PSG. Names like Lassiter, Calvo, Matarrita, Randall Leal, sort of the names that stick out for MLS fans. I don't know, for you guys, who is the one or two key guys on the Costa Rican roster that you'll be taking a look at?
I don't know if enough people are really noticing Randall Leal with Nashville. Hani Mukhtar has been their best player this season, so he's rightfully been getting a lot of the headlines and highlights and the praise. But Randall Leal is awesome, quite frankly. And last year he was their most consistent player, and he's somebody who kind of rose from, like, I was talking to folks in Nashville like before the season, and they were like, yeah, like when he wasn't like struggling at first, but he's like, we fielded a couple calls from MLS teams asking if we would trade him, and we just kind of laughed at it. Like that wasn't something that we would even consider. And now you look at him for somebody for his productivity and age and profile. I don't know. There isn't a realistic amount of allocation money to make a trade like that even come within the ballpark. He's somebody who's, again, he's somebody who has capable of those individual moments, capable of breaking the game in transition. And I think that he's somebody that if people aren't watching a lot of Nashville and just kind of looking at the box scores or looking at headlines and the Hani Mukhtar stuff, that I think that they're going to be surprised by just really how dangerous he is every time he's on the ball.
He's definitely one to watch, and I think what's interesting about him, and if you think about some of the issues that the United States has had in CONCACAF qualifying, certainly you go back to what happened against Trinidad and Tobago. Not that I want to bring up bad memories, but it always seems that there's a moment when the United States struggles. Maybe they're the better team, they have more of the ball, but they're just not. They're lacking a little bit of teeth up front, and then the other side, the other team against the run of play finds their most creative or most dangerous guy, or just a guy who knows how to make something out of nothing. Randall Leal is that guy. He makes stuff happen on his own. He doesn't necessarily need a bunch of support. And if you're a U.S. men's national team fan and you're thinking about that game in Columbus, and let's say it's the 75th minute and the U.S. hasn't broken through and it's 0-0 and Randall Leal gets on the ball, you're going to start sweating bullets. And this is not really a change for the U.S. There's always that, right? There's always at least one of those guys in some of these teams that they're supposed to beat, at least at home. We know Costa Rica is a different monster on the road, but at home you're supposed to hold serve. They didn't in the last cycle. You can point directly to that game as part of why they didn't qualify. There's going to be pressure when they get to Columbus to win this match, and they have to watch out for guys like Leal.
I think, again, as I was mentioning with the Jamaica match in Austin, I think this will be an energized crowd. I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, Columbus is always that's the original U.S. soccer market, right? That's the home of Dos Acero, U.S. Mexico, the traditional home. But of course, with the move to Lord.com field, now Costa Rica gets that slot in Columbus, and then of course Mexico gets the slot down at TQL in Cincinnati.
Really hope FC Cincinnati doesn't rub off on the national team.
Exactly.
Really hope not. Just need to change the color scheme.
Wow. Why are you saying things like this, Tom? You're asking for the soccer gods to punish us. I don't know why you would do that.
Well, I did go out of my way to say how much I like FC Cincinnati hiring Chris Albright today, so I think that we're evening it out.
It's a good hire for them. But yeah, the hope is that building with a bigger capacity than a lot of the soccer specific stadiums, that for the United States is a different place than it is for FC Cincinnati.
Yeah,
and that with better players and whatnot.
Exactly.
It's a better place for the hosting team.
No, but yeah, it's not been pretty down there in Cincinnati for sure, and hopefully their fortunes turn around. But yeah, going back to this Costa Rica match, like I said at the top, they're kind of a World Cup mainstay. I had a really good World Cup run in 2014, 2018, not so much, but they're a team that expects to be in it. And I talked about Navas, we talked about Leal. This is his. I believe it's his first shot at a World Cup. I don't believe it was with them last time. Guys like Kendall Waston, veterans like him, Ruiz, Borges, a lot of
you can't get Brian Ruiz out of the lineup for Costa Rica. It's never going to happen.
36 years old. 36 years old as of August 18th. But
there is that, right? That this is a very veteran group. I mean, sure. Joel Campbell's hanging around. He's not old, but he's 29. Been around forever. Yeah.
And it feels like he's old.
It does. It feels like Joel Campbell should be 38 years old. Absolutely. I mean, Celso Borges is over 30. He's a guy that you point to as incredibly veteran hand. I mean, plays at a good level. Costa Rica is scary in a lot of ways. But again, I come back to what I said with the U.S. going to Panama. The United States, player for player, is better than Costa Rica in most places. I mean, Keylor Navas notwithstanding, they are better in most places. They should win this game, especially at home. So then we get back to 7 points or bust. And honestly, not that they should be talking about 9 points. Yes, take it game by game. We learned from the lesson from the last window. But 9 points really is what we should be, as fans, should be expecting them to go out and do.
I do love that Tyler Adams was saying we learned our lesson, or hey, maybe we should have just been focusing. Tyler Adams was the one who said the 9-point quote. Like he wasn't,
I know.
He wasn't being like.
I love the way he couched it. He was like, I think I even said something about it. Yes, you did, Tyler. We all were talking about it. You were the one, Tyler. We counted 1, 2.
Some people might have taken the bait too.
To be fair, he didn't just like sit down at the microphone and be like, you know what? Before anybody asks me any questions, we're gonna win all 3 games. He was answering a question, to be fair, but also like he just said it. He could have just quarterback coach spoke that one and been like, well, we're gonna try our best. We're gonna take a game at a time. So I don't want to punish him for saying something interesting and giving a good quote, but like it's funny on the back end, like you said, that he's like, oh, we learned our lesson. Maybe we were like, well, we who? It was you.
Well,
royal we, the royal we.
The problem with all of this is that it is such a difficult needle to thread for this group and for the U.S. men's national team program and for Greg Berhalter and for people who talk about this team, right? I mean, if I want to go full on sports talk, I can be on the radio demanding, hey, you have to expect 9 points and anything else is a disappointment and fire Greg Berhalter if they don't get them. That sounds like I'm discounting the opponent, right? It sounds like I'm saying, oh, Jamaica is going to be a pushover and they'll win in Panama. They should. There's no reason to expect Panama to put up much of a fight. And hey, whatever, Costa Rica, we've got you. It's a fine line to say they should get 9 points while at the same time recognizing it won't be easy. But this group has to continue to solidify as a team, and you hope one window is enough for that. I don't know if it is. I mean, this is just me asking, please be one window ready. I mean, after one window, be ready to take on the rigors. And again, with the 2 home games, it becomes much more important to get those maximum points.
Sure. And it goes back to what I said earlier. I won't be too upset. I mean, granted, it should be a 9-point window, but I won't be too upset if they come away with 7. If they play horribly in Panama and have to smash and grab their way to a point, then that'll be a little different story. Then I'll be a little more concerned. But no, these are, again, 3 teams that the United States should beat. Will they beat them necessarily? That remains to be seen, especially against Panama. But, I mean, these 2 matches you have to win at home, 100%. Tom?
I still wonder what this entire podcast would have been like if not for those 45, that second half of the like, we're saying it's like, 7-9, something like that, and, this seems good enough. Like, would we be just, like, yelling at each other and been, like, throwing things at the wall, like, giving, like, oh, my God, they're playing again. Like, oh, no, like, we thought they were going to do better. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, so I just think it's funny. It is so I think it's very fun how sports really does hinge on moments, and that wouldn't necessarily be wrong. But like World Cup qualifying is, you in generalities, you try to take a step back, you try to be nuanced, you try to sample size, all that stuff, put things in perspective. But World Cup qualifying, there's no time for that. It doesn't matter what some of those things are. You need points, so we would have been right to be freaking out if they had taken 2 points from the first 3 games and particularly played the way they were playing. So I think it's funny like how small the margins are.
Very small margins.
Yep. Last question, and then we'll kind of wrap up. The goalkeeper situation.
Matt Turner next.
Matt Turner. Yeah, it's Matt Turner. I have some fear. I'm a little worried that because Stefan is healthy and because he doesn't have an issue traveling to Panama now, that Berhalter's going to find a way to platoon this thing or give Stefan the first game, and I don't think it's necessary. For whatever Zach Steffen has done in his career, he is a backup goalkeeper. He does not play. League Cup matches don't count for me. I mean, they count, but he doesn't have enough of them. So yeah, I'm with Tom. It should be Matt Turner.
Interesting, because 6 months earlier we'd be talking about Steffen and then Turner, but now it looks like Turner has really supplanted Steffen as the number 1 goalkeeper, and that's really a credit to him, right? I mean,
my colleague Matt Doyle has been saying this for 18 months about Matt Turner, so not everybody, but yeah,
most people.
I kind of was of that. I thought that it was super close, and I thought it would have been difficult to not give Steffen the number 1 shirt just because he didn't do anything to lose it at the national team level, and I would super understand why Turner wouldn't just be given the keys and all right, here you go. But as Jason was saying, after that first window, I do think that Berhalter is going to split these games. I think Steffen will start once. I do think that. And again, I'm not sure that it's necessary, and I'm not sure that whatever in the first window, it's not. I don't know if it was or wasn't his fault that he got COVID or whatnot. We don't know the circumstances there, but regardless, it's not necessarily his fault that he wasn't available. And I think that those 3 games, just you roll with Turner here.
All righty. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Why don't you guys plug your social information, plug where we can find you online. Jason, we'll start with you.
Where can you find? Well, apparently today, nowhere. Oh, wait, are we back? Is everybody back?
I think we're back as of this taping. I think we're back.
Twitter never went down. Twitter is my my spiritual home. It's so sad to say that. Good Lord, that makes me sound so terrible. My wife is really mad. Davis JSN, Davis JSN. Turns out there are a lot of Jason Davises in the world, so I had to be creative with my handle. That's on Twitter. That's on Instagram. Those are the 2 main places you can find me social media wise. Obviously, get a satellite radio, listen to Sirius XM, find me on channel 157 from noon to 3 Eastern time every day, and listen to the Best Soccer Show. And subscribe on YouTube. That'll help us out too. We're doing a lot of post-game stuff around World Cup qualifying. So if you want somewhere to go vent or celebrate, we have phone lines. It's like a real radio show, except it's on the internet.
There you go. Are you guys doing shows after every single match or just a few of them?
We did all 3 of the first window. The plan is to do all 3 this time around, although I'll be in Austin, so technically it might get a little bit more difficult, but I expect that we're going to do something. So, yeah, as soon as the plan is at final whistle, we may have to bump sometime a little bit later into the evening, but final whistle, we go on live, we talk about the game.
Perfect. Tom, where can we find you?
Unlike Jason, I find time to sleep, so just on Twitter at Tom Bogert, and there are less Tom Bogerts, I'd imagine, in as that combination of names. So it's just at Tom Bogert, and also I started on Twitter in 2009, and I think so. Yeah, freshman year of high school. Woof, long time ago. So,
oh my God! Now you just made me feel old, though. Don't say things like that. My birthday was yesterday. I can't. Okay.
There at MLSsoccer.com, you'll find it.
Yeah, does a great job there, by the way. I think there are 2 Sydney Hunts in the world that I know of. One is my father, so I don't know if any others besides us 2.
Did you beat them to all the social media accounts?
My dad barely knows. So my dad barely knows how to use social media. So.
Right. But why did you not claim Sydney Hunt on all the social media? That's what we're saying. Where are you on that? Just the name. Didn't get it?
I'll research that as we hop off here. We'll take a look. That's a good thought.
What has that handle? It's just like
I made a mistake back in 2009 when I joined Twitter, and I chose to put my blog's name as my handle, not thinking it was just promotional for the blog. When it turns out it's a personal brand thing. Should have gone with Jason Davis back then.
Well, I mean, you could still change it. We'll see. There might be a maybe able to flip some money to the other Jason Davis that has it. But yeah. Davis JSN for Jason. Tom Bogert is at Tom Bogert on social media, Twitter, Instagram. Guys, thanks a lot. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully it's a successful window for the United States.
9 points. 9 points. 9 points. Thank you,
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Take care. Well, that does it for us. We'll see you next time on another edition of Five Stripes Tonight. Enjoy the matches, everyone.